Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube. Oh my God, it feels so nice to say that again. I missed you all. I've been out on the plains and islands and taking a big trip. If you couldn't tell by the different backgrounds, and basically where I was, the internet was not super great. It took a long time to post the videos I did. I was not in a situation where I think I had the where I felt like I had the ability to live stream, or at least it would not be easy or polite to those around me. Um, but I'm glad to be back. I had a good trip. I still got a lot of footage to sort through. It'll be on Tailosive Talks later. But now that I'm back, I'm very happy to be live streaming again. And what better subject to kick it off than the new, recently unveiled M2 MacBook Air, which we still don't have yet. But Mac Rumors actually got exclusive source claiming that they know when the M2 MacBook Air is subject to launch, which is a fairly safe prediction, if it is a prediction. If it ends up being right, I won't be surprised because it sounds fairly logical. I mean, Apple said that this new MacBook Air would launch in July, and July 15th is right smack dab in the middle. And most of the time when Apple launches a new MacBook or a new product like this, they launch it on a Friday. And pre-orders typically take place a week before. So there's a little bit of repetitiveness and things we can predict based on Apple's past behavior. So if this ends up being true, we should find out if the source is accurate within the next week. So it's July 2nd already. Apple rarely announces stuff on Saturday. But if the launch is indeed truly on July 15th and Mac Rumors ends up being correct, that would mean pre-orders start a week before, which would be July 8th, a Friday morning, likely around 5 a.m. Pacific. That's typically when Apple launches the pre-order period. And last time, with the launch of the M2 MacBook Pro, Apple announced the pre-orders were going to be on Friday, I think it was June 17th. They announced that on June 14th, which was a Tuesday. So that means we'll find out if Apple wants to go with the same release cycle that they did with the M2 MacBook Pro, which, considering they're both M2 laptops and they're both coming out in the summer, that sounds fairly logical to me. That means that on Tuesday of this upcoming week, there might be an Apple Newsroom post that says pre-orders start on July 8th, and then it'll be available in stores, and it'll start arriving on July 15th. We'll see. So if they end up being correct, that's what we should expect. And if we don't hear anything next week, either Apple is changing the launch cycle, but typically with new product lines, I mean, especially with something as new and redesigned as the M2 MacBook Air. The MacBook Air does not get redesigned all too often. You know, the 2018 redesign stayed true all the way up till now. They're still selling it. I mean, for $1,000, they're still selling that 2018 MacBook Air design. It just happens to have an M1 chip and no more butterfly keyboard. But the fact is, because it's a new design and it's borrowed so much from the new MacBook Pros and all that, now it's got the MagSafe, now it's got the new color options. I assume they want to make a big deal about when the pre-orders go live. They don't want to just suddenly drop it one morning without telling anybody. Am I the only one that is disappointed by M2? No, I'm sure you're not the only one, but I think that most of the people disappointed by it likely had expectations too high in the first place. I'm not disappointed by it because I was not expecting much. Just like, for the same reason, I don't expect the A15 chip to be much better or drastically different from the A14 chip. I was expecting an M1 to M2 upgrade to be marginal, slight improvements across the board. I don't think most people, especially with iPhone upgrades, I mean, if you ask people that do upgrade their iPhone every year, like they go from 11 to 12 to 13, do those people upgrade for the CPU? I don't personally think so. I think the main reason is there's some new camera feature, there's some new screen size, or a change with the display, or, hey, Bart, thank you for your support for the past 11 months. Most people are not upgrading year over year for CPU changes. The M1 was already incredibly fast and very capable, and I think for most people it is still probably overkill for what a lot of people use laptops for, which is basic, web browsing, text documents, and that kind of thing. So finding out that the M2 chip is not that much better or slightly better in certain areas or slightly worse in others doesn't shock me. It's like, yeah, it's an entry-level chip. It's the first of its family of chips. And of course, it's the same 5 nanometer architecture that the M1 was based on. So I think people that were disappointed by M2 were just expecting way too much out of it, in my opinion. Um, is it possible to do a Surface Duo re-review? It's improved a lot, like a lot more than you can imagine. I've heard people saying that. It's been a while since I've tried it out. I didn't try the Surface Duo 2 because it just seemed to double down on the unnecessary stupidity of it. But I don't know. I get the feeling that not that many people are going to buy it, even if they did fix it. So while I'm happy to hear from the long-term reviews that the software has fixed a lot of its instability, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, too late? 15 years too late. you know, it's one of those things where, okay, it's great that they fixed it now, but there's so few people that are even interested in that form factor at this point. It's not really selling at meaningful volume, and I just use my dang iPhone for way too much these days. It's my I am so dang fully embedded in the ecosystem now that, like, on this trip, I have no clue how I could have continued to make content in Hawaii with a non-Apple ecosystem. Like the fact that I was recording videos with my iPhone and editing them with Final Cut. I was producing 2, occasionally 3 videos in a day, thanks to the optimization of Final Cut and the long battery life, because where we were, we didn't have power outlets accessible. I dive more into that in today's tech podcast, but like, this ecosystem is so strong for me now. Like the video thumbnails, all the thumbnails across the Tailosive network are all being done with iOS 16 and Subject Lift. It's so easy now to just lift subjects out of pictures and design thumbnails just with my phone that if I switch over and start reviewing the Surface Duo 2, I'm going to have to keep grabbing my iPad or my iPhone for thumbnail design, and I'll just be trying to use SMS text, and then I can't get them to forward to my Mac as easily because it doesn't have iMessage and all that. So it's like, yeah, I'm glad the software has improved, but I think it's a bit too late for them to save it. I think people have already kind of abandoned that form factor, or at least most people have. Anyway, I already read that. Get the M1. M2 has flaws and slower than M1. It's not entirely true. I think people are blanket statement applying things. There are certain situations where the M1 can perform faster. The base M1 can perform faster than the base M2. But that does not mean the M1 is objectively and overall faster than the M2. I think in the vast majority of circumstances, people will be using these laptops. The M2 still will perform faster. It just may not perform faster when you have 10 Chrome tabs open and you're running Cinebench and you're clocking the CPU to go as high as it possibly can. You know, they optimize these chips based on user performance. They don't optimize them based on YouTuber benchmarking, which you'll get different results on if you try to get the CPU as hot as you can and then monitor how the fans perform. So if you care more about read and write speed and you don't plan on upgrading from the base model, then I guess go with the M1. But yeah, I mean, if that's a big concern of you, that good news. Those Macs have been out for a while and they're available for cheaper. You can get an M1 MacBook Pro certified refurbished for like $200 less than an M2 MacBook Pro. You can get an M1 MacBook Air certified refurbished for $850. You can save money if the read and write speeds on the base model is very, very important to you. I think if read and write speeds are important to you, you're probably not buying the base model because the people that take advantage of read and write speed are the people that are typically using more data. You know, those read and write speeds are very, very noticeable when you're transporting hundreds of gigabytes of storage. If you're transporting hundreds of gigabytes of storage, do you buy the 256 gig model? Probably not. I mean, the type of people that would actually appreciate those read and write speeds are going to be buying 512, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte Macs, or even better yet, they're not buying the base model MacBook Pro. They're buying the 14-inch and 16-inch. So yeah, it's I think blown a bit out of proportion, in my view, and it's concerning to me because I know people read headlines and people just don't do proper research and they just think, oh, M2 slower than M1 because I saw a headline that said the read and write speed is bad, and that's not the case. Hey, Argos, thank you for your support. It seems longer. 12 months. He reached the 1 year mark. That's awesome. Windows 11 is so good. It's so much like OS X. I haven't used it, so I can't really comment too much on it. I really enjoyed Windows 7 back when I had a PC, and then Windows 10 came out and broke everything, so I was very annoyed with Windows 10. I got several PCs after that that still were not as reliable as my Mac was. So I haven't given Windows 11 a shot, but because I have yet to see any video editing application, which I'm sorry, I know that's subjective, but that's what my job entails. Whether I'm making content about EVs or iPhones or Apple Watches or whatever, I make a lot of videos. And the best use of my time is Final Cut, which is only available on the Mac because that is best optimized for ARM, and I can export videos much, much faster. And I have yet to see DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere be able to export videos as quickly and crank out as much content as I do. So even if I liked Windows 11 and found a PC that I really liked, it would not accelerate my workflow. I couldn't get work done as fast. So for the sake of the channel and reviewing, I mean, maybe I'd dive into that if Apple gets more boring, but so far there's enough stuff going on with Apple, and if I'm being completely transparent, Apple relates more to me than Windows does, so that's why I'm more interested in talking about Apple. And I think as the tech community gets very saturated with creators, and it's not a bad thing, it's just that there's lots of people now making content on the same things. So you kind of have to lean into your niches, lean into the things that you find interesting, because I think ultimately, if you have a genuine passion or a genuine interest in something, you will naturally and even subconsciously just pick up on things and make better content than if you try to force interest in something. If you try to just, well, I'm not really interested in this, but for the sake of the algorithm, I'll make videos on this, you're probably not going to pick up on things or have much of a unique opinion or unique voice to share. So at this point, I'm not terribly interested in much going on with Windows 11. I get a little bit interested at certain Surface hardware, mostly because, you know, the reason I like my MacBook and the reason I bought my iMac Pro way back when I did is because I'm a fan of all-in-one designs, and most Windows is more about custom PC builds and having these big towers, and it's not so much about all-in-ones, and the Windows machines definitely don't care too much about battery life or video exporting performance, which are both very, very important things, especially on this last trip. I used the crap out of my laptop. Very glad I had it. So I thought Windows 7 was good back when I had it. It was very reliable and stable, and it felt like that was back when Windows was actually trying to be a desktop operating system. Now it's trying to be this weird hybrid of both, and I think you kind of get, at least with Windows 10, you were getting this weird approach of trying to be touch-friendly and keyboard and mouse-friendly all at once, but a lot of people were either using it with only a keyboard and mouse, or on touch, you needed a keyboard and mouse to get it to work. So anyway, do you think they will make a new base model MacBook? At this point, no, just because I've seen them release it so many times and then get rid of it. Like that, they had the cheaper plasticky regular MacBooks, and then they got rid of those because they weren't selling that great. And then in 2015, they reintroduced it as the 12-inch MacBook that we all know now, and that didn't really work out either. But I think that it could have worked out maybe if they did it again with Apple Silicon. Like the 12-inch MacBook, I think, was ahead of its time. Whoa! Oh my God. That was a generous super chat. Thanks, Ben. I'll answer that in a second. I'll just finish my thought here. The 12-inch MacBook design was really compact and really portable, and not that many people were complaining about the portability aspect, but they were complaining about the performance, the keyboard, and the battery. And I think most of those things could be addressed by Apple Silicon. Maybe not the keyboard, but if they put in a M2, or probably not even that, you could probably stuff a A16 chip in there or something. You could probably have a fairly capable Mac that's very lightweight and very compact, but that kind of overlaps a bit with what the MacBook Air is supposed to be anyway. So it's weird to have, like, here's the Air, here's the Pro, and then here's the regular MacBook, which is lighter than the Air. I don't know. There might not be an easy way for them to accommodate the Magic Keyboard with that 12-inch design. So that's why I think they haven't brought it back, and there's been some reports claiming that they want to bring it back in 2024, and that is a ways out, but I've heard Quo say he hasn't, or Ross Young hasn't heard about that one or something like that. Okay, Ben says, hope you had a great vacation. Do you use the battery widget on your iPhone? I use it not on all my devices show up. My iPad Air doesn't, though. Have I seen this? I guess I occasionally use it. I don't honestly use iOS widgets all that much. I have a stock widget on my second screen, and then if I swipe, I can see. Usually I just use this when my AirPods are in. So if I'm using my AirPods and I'm curious what the battery's at, I'll check that. But Not much. I don't check percentages very often. You know, I've kind of fallen in the Apple way of thinking of just like look at the icon, and if it's low, you can be concerned. But because the battery life on my iPhone is so good anyway, I don't really care if it's at 60 or 80% because it takes so long for it to drain anyway. Same thing with my Apple Watch. I can easily get through a whole day on a half a charge, really. So I don't look at the individual percentages. Um, Use it, but not all my devices show up. Yeah, the AirPods only show up when I'm using them. If I put them back in the case and set them down, then it goes away. The Apple Pencil on the iPad battery widget only shows up when I grab the pencil and start doing stuff with it. But I didn't take my iPad on my vacation. I didn't have it with me, and I still haven't plugged it in since returning from my trip, which, yes, was awesome. I had a great time in Hawaii. Thank you for asking. Do you need more portability than the Air anyways? It's not like you hit a specific point in portability where you're just like done, we have achieved all peak portability, you can never get more portable. It's like it's a spectrum. It's kind of like battery life. Like you can't hit a battery life that's like perfect, it can now cover all use cases. It's like battery life can always get better, right? Like even if you get a MacBook and it lasts you a week, it could technically one day, maybe if it gets more efficient, last you 2 weeks. And then after that, it could technically one day get to 4 weeks. And so it's the same thing with portability. It's like most people probably don't need something more portable than an Air. But are there people out there that would appreciate something even more small and more compact? Probably, yeah. I know a lot of big diehard fans of the 12-inch MacBook that were like, you know, the performance sucked, but I loved how tiny it was and how well engineered it was. Just such an incredibly lightweight machine. It was just, I'm limited by the technology of my time. You know? That would make a great meme. I gotta do that. Um, how's iOS 16 beta running for you? So hard to remember which one. I'm thinking about getting the public. For me, the beta 1 was pretty stable. The day 1 iOS 16 beta that we got right after DubDub was pretty stable. And then I got beta 2, and that seems to have more bugs. Nothing cataclysmic, nothing like the whole phone shuts down or anything, but especially like after I take a picture, because you know I was in Hawaii taking a lot of pictures and videos and stuff. I would like take a picture and want to view it, and it would get cropped and be rotated the wrong way, and I would try to fix it, and it wouldn't fix it. So I'd basically just have to close the app, open it again, and then I could look at the picture. So that's been pretty annoying, but aside from that, nothing huge. I think that's the only major bug I can think of. But it did get annoying because I was taking a lot of pictures, and as soon as I would take a picture, you know, with people or friends we were hanging out with, I would want to show it. So I'd take the picture, click the little preview icon, and it would be like cropped and sideways, and I couldn't fix it unless I closed the app. Um, so it's a little bit more buggy on beta 2, but that's the only thing I can think of at this point. Um, I would love a 2-pound MacBook with a 12-inch MacBook body. I thought it was under. Wasn't it under 2 pounds? Is it the M2 MacBook Air, like 1.7 pounds or something? I love your channel, says Tejas. Thank you. I don't know why, but thank you. Let's see. Only widget I actually use is weather, but have 2 other ones to fill space, so my icons are only on the bottom 2 rows. Yeah, I've seen other people do that. I think I'd use more widgets if they had smaller ones. I don't like how big most of them are. I liked Windows 7 when it was new, but got real sick of it when all the computers in my high school were still using it in 2019. I would still take Windows 7 over Windows 10, honestly. I don't care that it looks old, it works. And it worked reliably for me. It was like peak Windows before they tried to turn it into the hybrid OS, and I don't think they did a very good job with it. An iPhone 14 Pro at 5.8 inches would be a great device now that the Mini is gone. The Pro is gone to crap once it became 6.1 inches. I don't think many people hate the regular 13 Pro. I mean, the camera bump is bigger, but people want the better camera, so that's why they do it. Will you buy a 12-inch MacBook if they redo it? I probably just wouldn't have a justification to keep it. I mean, I would admire it, and I think they should bring it back, or nah, I don't really think they need to bring it back. Honestly, the problem is we've associated... Here's the thing. Oh my god, you guys got me on a tangent now. We all refer to it as the 12-inch MacBook. And you know why? Because people hate saying the regular MacBook, even though everyone keeps advocating that should come back. This one shouldn't be called Pro. That should just be called the regular MacBook. It's like, yeah, but now every time you refer to it, you have to say the regular one, which is more syllables and more complexity. So I'm okay with them not using that terminology because it gets confusing. So to save on syllables and for simplicity, everyone has fallen into the trend of calling it, 2.7 pounds, sorry. Everyone's fallen into the trend of calling it the 12-inch MacBook. The only reason we call it the 12-inch MacBook is because, of course, that's how big the display was. But if you recall, that MacBook had very thick bezels, much thicker than that we're getting on the M2 MacBook Air. So if we brought back that 12-inch MacBook design, it probably wouldn't even be 12 inches. They would make the bezels thinner, and it would probably be a 13-inch MacBook, but now people wouldn't know what you're referring to, because 13-inch could be referring to the Pro or the Air. So now we would have to say the 13-inch regular MacBook. So I guess my answer would be, yeah, kind of what Katrina says, just another screen size for the MacBook Air. Or MacBook Nano, MacBook Mini. I'm okay with there being a suffix. It's okay for there to be a name. SE would be more appropriate for the current 13-inch MacBook Pro because it's reusing an old design. I don't think you would use that on a more expensive model. That's the other weird thing. The 12-inch MacBook was more expensive than the Air at the time. Now that the M2 MacBook Air is fanless and very thin and very lightweight, if they just made a smaller one, I don't know if there would be much of a difference in performance, or should the smaller one cost more now that Apple Silicon is so efficient? I don't know. To save on syllables, how lazy are you? Incredibly. That's what all technology is. Who is this, by the way? That's his name. I'm not asking. Technology is the pursuit of laziness. We developed cars because we didn't want to walk. We developed phones because we didn't want to write letters. We buy faster laptops because we're tired of waiting. That's all what technology is. It's all the pursuit of laziness. That's all what math is, too. Dad's in the chat. Hey, Dad. New Coke in classic Coke. That's a tongue twister. I think I got that lesson from my dad, who's not a lazy person. I mean, he's, very motivated and stuff. But I think at one point he told me that math is the pursuit of laziness. It's people didn't want to count things on their hands, so they came up with multiplication and division. So yeah, I'm sorry. Even with the naming schemes of products, we're going to prioritize what's the least amount of syllables because, especially in my line of work where you're talking with people about tech products and podcasts and live streams and videos and Discord and Twitter, you talk about these a lot. So you want to use the simplest, most easy to refer to name. We developed text so we wouldn't have to talk. Thank you, Joshua. Texting allows us to not have to talk on the phone because we're lazy. That's all what technology is. People don't want to have to say the 6.7-inch iPhone 13 Pro Max every time they refer to the phone. With smaller bezels, they could put a 12.5-inch display in the same size chassis as the 12-inch MacBook. I don't know, man. I think you need to look up the bezels on that thing. Look up the... Okay, everybody follow along with your separate device. 12-inch MacBook. Look it up right now. Look at how thick the bezels are on that thing. Like, my God. Ugh. There's too many dang cookies. $409. Wow, who's selling this? On the back market. Jeez. Free shout out. Not a sponsor. Look at them bezels. Compared to what we have now and how thin they are in the M2 Air. So the biggest design difference that I could see between them bringing back this MacBook, the ultra thin one that's lighter and smaller than the M2 Air, is that the keyboard goes right to the edge. That's the biggest design difference, in case people are wondering why we're talking about this. The keyboard goes literally right to the edge of the aluminum, and the speaker is above the function keys. And we still haven't had that design return, even on the M2 MacBook Air, which is very thin and very lightweight. But if you take a look at the keyboard, they make it so hard to zoom in on the Apple Store app. But you know what I mean. The speakers are still alongside the keyboard, and that means it's still a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. Yeah, 2.7 pounds. Let me look up real quick. How heavy was the 12-inch MacBook? Because I'm now curious how much more weight we have to go. How close were these laptops? 2 pounds. Right at exactly 2, I guess. So it's 0.7 pounds heavier. It's still pretty dang light. I mean, we're talking about the MacBook Air, for gosh sakes. You're asking about laziness. Whole reason people want this thing is because they're lazy and it's lighter. If Apple made a laptop 2 to 3 years later and add a regular M1, they can make a $599 or even $529 budget laptop. My only pushback with that is the US dollar is weakening by the day. So my point is a $1,000 laptop in 3 years will be the US dollar equivalent of a $600 laptop now. That's how I see it. Would you upgrade iPhone 14 or wait for iPhone 15 with USB-C? Lastly, oh, okay. Thank you, Simply Sora, for the super chat. Wow. Very kind of you. I'll finish this question here. Would you agree Steve Jobs would have killed Tim Cook having slow data transfer on Lightning cable? No, I think Steve Jobs would have killed the port and gone with a portless design much sooner than Tim ever would. Apple would not have brought back legacy ports. There's certain things Apple has done since the passing of Steve Jobs. Tim's not a crook, okay? I think Tim Cook financially and scaling wise has done a fantastic job for the company, and there's likely a lot of your favorite Apple products would not have been made if Steve Jobs was still in charge. Things like the iPhone XR or the iPhone SE, those just based on Steve's approach to product lines, he was not in favor of making like cheaper or having lots of different size options and that kind of thing. I don't think you would get a mini iPhone and a Pro Max iPhone like that. That's more Tim Cook era. That's not Steve Jobs era. Steve Jobs was necessary and crucial in the founding and the rising and the success of Apple becoming a big company, but Tim Cook was absolutely needed for taking it mainstream and sustaining the company. The man follows wise business decisions to a T, much better than Steve Jobs ever would, that's for sure. But the first part of your question was, should you wait for USB-C? Again, it's not a guarantee. It's feeling more and more likely that the iPhone 15 will have USB-C, but I wouldn't like put my foot down and say it's confirmed. It's absolutely happening. But with the pressure from EU, and now Brazil is looking to pass a similar law into effect that would ban devices from keeping the Lightning port, which is a very big country. Brazil is not a small market. There's over 200 million people that live in Brazil, and there's like over 800 or 700 million that live in Europe. So it's a large push from governments now all advocating for Type-C. Personally, if you're asking what I would want to do, I don't know what phone you're currently rocking. Like, I'm on the 13 Pro Max. This phone has been fantastic, and the battery is great, and the camera's awesome. I prefer the notch to the eye hole, so I'm comfortable with keeping this another year, so that's why I'm not planning on upgrading, but I don't know what you're on. If you're on an iPhone 7, then I would at least wait until September, because we're so close to iPhone season anyway. If you gotta buy an iPhone now, at least don't pay full price for it. Get it refurbished or find it on sale, find it discounted if you need a new iPhone right this second. But if you can afford to wait, then we only got like 3 more months until it's iPhone season again, so I would say just if you're comfortable with your current iPhone, keep it, because we're going into a recession anyway, and the stock market is still very, very low. So you'd be better off just investing iPhone money into a stock that you think will perform better, or an index fund, or that you think will perform better over the next year, because there's bad parts of a recession, especially for people living to paycheck. But if you're not, and you prepare for it, that recessions are corrections. The market naturally goes into a recession every so often. But what you should do in those times is not, cry and weep constantly, but just hold on to your assets and buy things that you think will recover. And in this case, in my opinion, that would be stocks. That's not investment advice. Do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor or whatever. But if you're asking for my opinion, should I spend $1,000 on an iPhone this year? I would say, I think a lot of people should see if they can live with their old iPhone for another year. I mean, if you've got enough money and $1,000 isn't a big deal, and you really think you'll utilize the new camera, the new features, then go for it. But yeah, we're in a recession. Simply Sora says, if in like 2024 they make a MacBook SE with M1 and an ultra thin body for cheap, it would sell like mad. I do wonder about that. I don't think Apple necessarily wants to make MacBooks that affordable, just because it would probably start cannibalizing the higher end MacBooks too much. I think $1,000 for an Apple branded laptop is pretty cheap, to be honest, compared to what $1,000 used to mean. U.S. dollar weakens every day, and the fact that there's certified refurbished MacBooks that you can get for under 1,000 now, and with education it's less. Um, that's that's what makes me think we're probably not going to see Apple go much lower than $1,000 at this point. Like the price of everything is going up, just because the U.S. dollar doesn't mean what it's used to. Um, but I like the concept, simply Sora. I'm agreed with you there. The idea of there being a entry level MacBook that's even less than the Air, that's branded as an SE, or the budget iPad is $300. They just call that iPad. Um, if they had a budget MacBook, it would be pretty interesting, but it would likely eat into the sales of the MacBook Air a bit too much. Um, Everything is increasing. Yeah. This recession is a supply side failure rather than a market failure. Last time we had this was in the 1970s. True, but it doesn't change that the market's down a lot. Like stocks have decreased quite a bit. Like you can buy a lot of stocks now at the value of what they were several years ago. So it kind of gives you a head start. You want to buy the dip, right? I know it's such a great financial opinion. Buy low, sell high. Oh my God, he's a genius. uh, let's see. We've been in one for a while. The stock market itself is just somehow detached from the rest of the economy this time and just now feeling the effects. The stock market is very emotionally charged. It really has nothing to do with how the companies themselves are performing. It's based on what the public perception of that company is on any given day. It's I'll see stocks tank on companies that are doing great, and I'll see stocks skyrocket on companies that are doing terribly. It's all just based on now that there's so many investors. The stock market used to be something only a few people could dabble with, and you had to know people to do options and trades and stuff. But now you can just download an app on your phone, and within a couple taps, people are using Robinhood and Webull. You just like buy, sell, go back and forth all the time, and that means that there's a lot of people now investing in the stock market that are not really aware of what's going on. They just see a headline or they read a tweet and then they sell or buy the stock based on those headlines and those tweets, and they don't actually look into the hard data of how the company's performing, that kind of thing. So that's why it's kind of silly to me for when people are like, oh, this one's overvalued, or this stock's way too high, or this one's way too low. It's like, it's based on what the market decides it's worth. That's what dictates its worth. Not really what the reality of the situation is, because most people don't even care to research what the reality of the situation is. Hey, Dennis, he says, happy 4th of July weekend. Based on the information we know about the M2 MacBooks and other info, do you think Apple will have a tough quarter in regards to sales? Don't think so. I think most of the people buying the entry-level MacBooks are not YouTubers, and they're not people that watch YouTube videos about them. The tech community is a small segment of the total Mac market, and the fact that the M1 MacBook Pro was their second best-selling laptop proved to me that the people buying these entry-level machines are buying them for the name, not for the performance. They're buying them because they're like, hey, that sounds like a Pro laptop, so it must be good. Or they're buying it because, oh, the MacBook Air, that sounds cheap and thin and light. That's for college students. So the M2 MacBook Pro just kind of doubles down on that and proves it further that they're putting the same silicon. For several years now, they've been putting the same silicon in the Air as they are the Pro. The performance was not that different at all, and yet still a ton of people were buying them. I think it's because of the name. It's a very iconic, recognizable name, and there's just this weird stigma. It's the same thing that happened with the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro. There were very few differences between the 12 and 12 Pro, and I thought, oh my God, no one's going to buy the 12 Pro because it barely has any differences to the 12, and yet the 12 Pro still sold really, really well. Why? Because it was close enough in price, and people thought, whoa, Pro sounds good, I better get the Pro. Despite the fact that the iPhone 12 actually had better battery life. The iPhone 12 was cheaper, and even if you opt for the extra storage, there's a small price gap there, but people were like, if I'm that close, I might as well get the Pro. And I think people are going to have the same logic with the Air and the Pro, even though the Pro is worse than the Air in so many ways. This is not this is not a machine, even though they brand it as Pro, that it's not really for professionals. It's for people who want a MacBook that think the Air is too thin and light, and they think they're a Pro user, but they're not actually. So they don't look into the specs. They don't care about the read and write speed. They don't care about the fan speed or the CPU performance. They're just buying it because it has the word Pro in it, and the price is lower than $2,000. Yeah, like Scott just said, Pro equals I'm better than you. Yes. That's the people. I wasn't recommending people buy the M1 MacBook Pro, which is why I even care less that the M2 MacBook Pro people think is a bad deal and you shouldn't buy it. Is like, of course you shouldn't. Why the heck would you? I felt the same way before. Even if they didn't have any thermal throttling, even if they didn't have any read and write speed issues, and the M2 MacBook Pro was better than the M2 MacBook Air in performance in every way, I still wouldn't recommend it. I just say, no, you're buying a MacBook that's under $1,500. You don't care that much about performance. And the things like the webcam and the MacBook Air's new redesign and the ports and the better display, those are things that people are actually going to utilize and care about for that market. You know, if we're talking about people buying $2,000 or $3,000 MacBooks, yeah, that's when performance and cooling and fans start to matter a bit more. Oh, that's a good one, says Ghosted. He says Pro equals perceived really overpowered. You just put Pro in the name and people think it's better. Even though the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro were so incredibly similar, people were just like, oh, that one says Pro, I better buy it. It's shiny, so it's Pro. They're spending all that money just to get on Facebook. I mean, there's some truth to that. I would like to think that the Facebook market is more of a fan of iPads, but there is absolutely some truth to the fact that there's a lot of people that enjoy Mac OS but are not power users, right? Like, there's a bunch of people that buy Macs because they like the AirDrop and they like iMessage and they just like the build quality. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen too many people disagree that Apple feels like one of the few companies that actually cares about battery life in their laptops. Most Windows laptops have pretty dang crappy battery life, and they don't look that great, to be frank. A lot of Windows laptops, I mean the cheaper ones, the ones that cost less than MacBooks do. There's some pretty and powerful Windows machines that are more expensive than the MacBook Air or the 13-inch MacBook Pro, but most people aren't buying those because they don't have the brand power or the ecosystem support. And for a lot of people that are just like, I want a laptop, I want something with a keyboard and trackpad, but I want it to have good build quality. I want it to last me a really, really long time. That's why a lot of people buy Mac. I even have cousins that, they buy Android phones and they don't buy iPhones, but they still buy a MacBook for the sake of, I know it'll last a long time, the build quality is good, and it gets years and years of software support, and there's a lot of simplicity that comes with the macOS platform. And there's a very large demographic of people that I think are just buying MacBooks for basic, web browsing and text editing and doing PowerPoint and keynote presentations and software writing. They're not all video editors. They're not all people that utilize the read and write speed. They're not all people that take the M1 to the absolute maximum and run it at the highest possible temperature and then see how the fan performs. I think Apple knows this, and that's why they were okay with the M2 compromise. I think they were well aware of how most people are using the base model MacBooks. I do not recommend anybody. I cannot think of a single use case as to why someone should buy the M2 MacBook Pro. I totally get why Apple released it, because people will buy it. People buy into that, oh, there's a Pro term, but that means it must be better. And there's enterprise, there's big brands and big companies out there that are just trained to buy MacBooks in bulk for their employees or for their staff, and they just think, oh, the Pro, that must mean it's better, and they buy these things in bulk. They'll buy thousands of them, and they'll literally spend the extra money on the Pro just for the sake of it has the word Pro in it, and they think that must... It's basically Apple profiting off of the ill-informed. You can decide for yourself whether that's unethical or not, but regardless of ethics, it's a great business move because it means that a lot of people that aren't aware that the performance is not that great or not that different from the MacBook Air, and you could save money by getting a different machine, that doesn't really matter. They're not willing to do the research. They're just walking in or opening up the website and saying, I need to buy a MacBook, so they order the Pro because that must be better, I guess, because it has a Pro in the name. I bought the M1 MacBook Air and M1 Mac Mini last year. I'm set for some time. Picked up the Mini off Apple refurbished. That's another thing I don't think other channels are bringing up. Like, most people do not do year-over-year upgrades with their Mac. Like, I don't think that many people are getting the M1 MacBook Pro and then upgrading to the M2 MacBook Pro. MacBook Radical and Ratty Patty. What? Are you going to test out a Windows machine with the new Intel Arc GPU inside or a Qualcomm Snapdragon inside to see how ARM performs on Windows 11? I wasn't planning on it. I really am not going to be interested until they start pulling out some performance metrics on video editing or something that I could see myself using, because, again, like we talked about earlier, I think that you'll pick up on details and you'll just make more interesting, better content if you cover things that you're genuinely interested in. And I have a very, very difficult time getting genuinely interested in Windows machines because I know they're not going to fit into my ecosystem as well. I know they're not going to have AirDrop, and I know they're not going to have the same battery life as my MacBook, and I know they're not going to export videos as quickly. So it's like all of these downsides for, well, now you're on Windows, so gaming, great. You know, it's like, do I want to relearn my video editing? Do I want to make it harder to import footage to my computer just so that I can maybe play some other games? Yeah, probably not. If I run out of video ideas and I want to start covering other subjects, because that can naturally happen. It's not that I'm forcing myself to be interested, but if Apple starts doing less and less stuff that I find interesting, my mind may naturally start to look at the alternative. Okay, what is Microsoft coming up with? Oh, they can do that on PCs now. That's kind of cool. Let me try that. You know, if they come up with something that's interesting to me, then I'd be willing to try it. But so far, they haven't done that yet, unfortunately. If you don't game, it's pointless. That's kind of how I feel about Windows right now. If you're not that much into gaming, I'm not really sure what it's got going for it. At least with my line of work, there's a lot of disadvantages by going with Windows. In macOS, there is software maintenance with the RAM cleaning if I don't want to buy apps like Clean My Mac. I'm not sure how you're asking that question, but I do not do any RAM maintenance or software maintenance or that kind of thing. I just run all the apps at the same time. I got Calendar, OBS, Final Cut, Discord, Twitter, Chrome, Safari, iMessage setting. I got everything open, and I have 32 gigs of RAM, so I guess the idea is just to get enough RAM to match your use case. But no, I don't have any or recommend any software applications to manage RAM. macOS does that for you, I think, pretty well. Use Chrome OS for a week, I dare you. I had a Chromebook in school growing up. It wasn't very useful. I couldn't use it for much. It's a very good name. I'll give the Chromebook credit for that. That's really what it is. Or at least, like I told my dad, I call it a Happy Meal laptop. It's a Chromebook is like a laptop you include with your Happy Meals, because it can basically do exactly that. Chrome. Everything you use Chrome for can be accessed. But to be fair, a lot of people basically just use laptops for web browsing. They do it for text documents and watching YouTube and reading the news, and a Chromebook can do that. So if your use cases is pretty low, the only problem is Chromebooks usually are built fairly cheaply. And in my parents' experience, they bought Chromebooks in bulk for the charter school they started. They did not last very long. They did not age terribly well. Dad says there is PRAM reset. Look it up east. Look it up east. Okay, maybe Dad has the answer to this question and I don't. It's it's possible. But yeah, like the Chromebooks broke very easily and they didn't feel as premium, and the speaker quality wasn't as good. The display quality usually wasn't as good. There may be some decent Chromebooks out now, but I'm not in the market for one, so I'm not going to buy up a bunch and then compare them so that I can tell you which one is the best buy. So I guess that's why I still think a lot of people are willing to shill out $800 or $1,000 on a MacBook, even if they don't do power-intensive things. They just want a good laptop that lasts a long time. Oh, he meant easy. Gotcha. They should let you edit the messages in the chat. I don't know why YouTube's against that. They let you edit comments. For the only real advantage on PC laptop is RAM and SSD upgradability. That's it. Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy that would rather open it up. I think I would rather just buy enough overhead that I don't have to worry about opening it up and that kind of thing. But yeah, Macs are pretty dang good at pretty much everything else. Yeah, that's an easy prediction, Keegan. I mean, if Mac Rumors source is right and the MacBook Air launches on July 15th, then the pre-orders would be around 5 a.m. on the 8th, and we would find out about the pre-orders Tuesday morning, which is July 5th. Yeah, they probably wouldn't want to announce it on July 4th. iPads are better for younger students if you're doing something other than Google. There you go. It's from the Apple Shepherd himself. macOS on 8 gigs of RAM has gotten rough since Big Sur, and especially Monterey, uses gigabytes of swap even with just Safari and Mail open. Really? I guess I haven't toyed around with... I don't know. I did quite a bit with the M1 MacBook Air when I bought it. I think that one had 8 gigs of RAM. I'll definitely get 8 gigs of RAM on the M2 MacBook Air. Oh yeah, someone was asking that earlier. So I've run a few polls on Twitter and on YouTube, and it seems to be pretty neck and neck because I don't plan on keeping it, but I do want to review the M2 MacBook Air because I want to check out the new design, and I want to see how the M2 chip without a fan compares to my MacBook Pro with a fan. I'm not expecting it to beat it. My expectations for the M2 chip are honestly pretty low, but I just want to see a super thin, super light MacBook with the new webcam and everything, and how it compares, and can I fit that into my workflow, and how much does that impact me? So I was polling people because I know that there's been this big concern on whether or not, Apple will use the 256 gig single NAND versus two 128 gigs. I think it's most likely they will follow suit like the M2 MacBook Pro, and they'll just use one 256 gig NAND because that simplifies manufacturing, and the people buying the base model MacBook Air are probably not the type of people to appreciate high read and write speed anyway. So the limitations are there. I don't deny that there are compromises with the M2 chip. I just think they were the right compromise. They compromised in an area where average consumers would not notice. So I say that was the right call. But for the sake of my review video on this channel, I usually run a poll to gauge what does the public want. What do you guys want me to see? I was curious, like, should I review the base model M2 MacBook Air so that I get the bare minimum, okay, what is the worst MacBook Air going to perform like? Or should I get the 512 gig and have a good understanding of, okay, this is the best performing version of the M2 MacBook Air. So I'm knowing that of all the MacBook Airs you can test, I have the best CPU, the best GPU, and the best read and write speed. So I was kind of polling people on what they thought I should get, but I didn't really include all of that explanation in the description. So a lot of people were like, what difference does it make? It's just the SSD. If it's just for review, it doesn't make a big difference. And I was like, well, I was talking about the different read and write speeds. I was curious, should I review the best possible M2 MacBook Air, or should I review the worst possible M2 MacBook Air? And I don't know if everybody voting in the poll got that, because all of the comments in the description on the tweets and the polls were saying get the 256 gig. Like, everyone was curious, like, how is the read and write speed going to be affected, and you should try the worst performing M2 Air. But the votes all were leaning towards 512. So most of the people voting 512 were not commenting why. So now I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm like, are there a bunch of people voting that don't understand why I'm asking in the first place? Are there a bunch of people voting in the poll just saying, you should get 512? I don't know, because 512 is higher. Why not get 512? Or are they not understanding the question? Because all the people in the comments are saying, get the slowest one. So I'm still a little bit torn. I think I might check when the configurator goes live. If getting 512 delays the order, I'll definitely not do it, because I want to get it on launch day. Hopefully that's July 15th. I want to get it as soon as possible. So I won't choose a configuration that results in a back order. I should have prefaced that from the beginning. 8 gigabytes of RAM is basically in a constant cycle of swap on, swap off, swap on. I wouldn't recommend to anyone. It slows quick, especially on that 256 gig SSD. Again, I think it ultimately still comes down to what you use it for. I think there's a lot of people that aren't maxing out 8 gigs of RAM, even with basic web browsing and stuff. It's economies of scale at work. They can probably buy a crap ton of 256 gig NANDs for around the same price as the 128s they're buying now. Yeah, I don't think it's everything to do with cost. I mean, the fact that there's still back orders on 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, despite it being 8 months old now. It's been like 8 months have gone by, and they still can't keep up on the orders for the 14-inch and 16-inch, which is not a great place for the company to be in. especially when new products come out. You know, like one of the reasons you don't want a big back order of laptops is that when new ones come out, you get a huge wave of cancellations because you weren't able to deliver the product on time. Or if people are like, well, if I got to wait that long, I might as well wait for the next keynote or the next Apple presentation. So it's not a place to be in for Apple to have month or 2 month long backlogs on their MacBooks. So just for the sake of building them and ramping them up and delivering them to people, using less components and simplifying assembly does make sense, and compromising in areas that you don't think people will notice, I think, is a good idea. That's the whole name of the game. I mean, that's why they have a non-laminated display on the budget iPad, because that saves on cost so they can get the price lower. It's a compromise, but it's the best-selling iPad. A ton of people don't notice the non-laminated display, or they don't care. So I think Apple made the same call with the M2 chip. Just imagine the clickbait going from 8 terabytes to 256. Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. That would make a good title. Can the slowest M2 MacBook Air compete with my M1 Max MacBook Pro? Yeah, that would be kind of a... All the other YouTubers are going to max it out anyway. I don't think that's true. I think all other YouTubers are going to buy every version. All the other channels are going to buy like 6 different variants of the MacBook Air, while other people are saving up money and having to wait 3 months to get theirs. Do you think the 14-inch iPad will be an iPad Pro or a normal one? 14-inch with Stage Manager, which is more mature and is really good at best with iPadOS 15. Yeah, I saw some report that was claiming they were doing like a 14-inch budget iPad, but I can't remember who said it. Was it a reliable source or not? I don't know. It sounded weird. It made me question the whole idea of there being a 14-inch iPad, because I think it was like Ross Young or someone with a decent track record came forward. Whoa! Oh my God. Chris! Why did you super chat so much? That must have been an accident. Oh, that was too much. Get ready for the activity rings. Thank you so much, Chris. He says, when you make your videos, why don't you record the audio and video as one file? You said you record the audio and video as separate files. Well, it's a very generous super chat, my God, but I do record them as one file. I used to record them as separate back when... Do I have it here? Back when I was recording with this camera. This doesn't have... Guess what my iPhone and this camera have in common? Neither have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Or wait, they might have a headphone jack, but no microphone input. It has some XLR inputs at the top, so you can plug in the heavy-duty microphones. But I can't fit the Zoom mic, which or I could buy a cable or something. I don't know, but I don't want to buy a cable. Everything I'm doing right now is working fine. So the Zoom H6 microphone back here has a 3.5 millimeter microphone jack that I can plug directly into my pocket cinema camera over here. This is what I record everything on, mostly. On trips, I record on my iPhone because the iPhone camera is pretty dang good anyway. But that camera, I can plug in the audio cable directly. So ever since I've switched to that pocket cinema, it records, it attaches the audio to the video automatically. So I just import one file. Back when I had this, I couldn't plug in my Zoom mic directly because it doesn't have it does have a headphone jack here, but it's not for microphone inputs. So I could buy like an adapter that goes from 3.5 to XLR or that kind of thing, but the funny thing is the Zoom mic has 4 XLR inputs, but no XLR outputs, which is what I would need in order for the audio and video to sync up. I could probably start using this one again if I wanted to, but it's big, it's heavy, the battery doesn't work on it anymore, and I have to keep around a giant power cord everywhere it goes. And the firmware on this Blackmagic is not as good or as stable as the firmware on that one. So I tried to sell this several times, no one wanted it, so I just kind of have this big giant camera sitting on my desk and it doesn't get much use. The real thing I miss of it, though, is the lens, which I can take and use on other cameras, but I really like the I think it's an 18 to 35 millimeter lens that I have on there. But unfortunately, back when I bought the Pocket Cinema, they didn't have EF lens mounts for that camera. Now they have one, but I'm just too lazy, and I don't think the video quality impacts my channel's revenue very much at all. I've had very well perform. I've had videos perform very, very well that were shot on my phone, and I've had really well shot videos that didn't perform great at all. So I think the people that follow my channel are likely following for the opinions and the subjects and the perspectives, not so much the video quality or the audio quality, because there's clearly so many other tech channels that do that way better than I do. So that's why I'm not investing much time or money into equipment, because ultimately I just don't think it results in much of a return on investment. Let's see. iJustine is just going to get all the colors. Yeah, all 4, I guess. But thank you so much for the insanely generous super chat, Chris. That was very kind of you. Yeah, most of the time I see people write comments, they're saying you should get the base model MacBook Air. Let's see. Do you think... Oh, I think I answered that. The 14-inch... Yeah, if they do a 14-inch iPad, I think it makes the most sense for it to be a Pro. Like, they've only done the 13-inch iPad Pro so far. They have not done, like, a budget 13-inch. I saw some people saying that it'd be kind of weird if they did, like, a 14-inch budget iPad. But, that's like a brand new supplier, and they would have to do brand new manufacturing lines for it. They couldn't recycle anything for the... They couldn't recycle the glass. They couldn't recycle the chassis or the displays. So... I doubt it. I doubt that'll exist, but it'd be kind of interesting. I guess there is a trend now where we're finding out that the iPhone 14 series is going to have a Max model that's not a Pro. It's going to have like a 6.7-inch display, but it's not a Pro model. And at the same time, there is a lot of talk that they're going to do a 15-inch MacBook Air, which I'm excited for, making like a more affordable MacBook with a big display. So I guess if that trend continues, maybe it would make sense to do like a 13-inch iPad Air. I've never seen people suggest that's coming, but maybe. Do you think Stage Manager will be really good? No, not at all. I have Stage Manager on my iMac Pro. I don't find it very useful. And thank you for the second super chat, Chris. Oh my God, you got to stop with these super chats, man. It's way too much. Chris says, I was asking because I edit audio. Okay, that's fair. Dennis says, what's the status on home internet? Oh, sorry, you asked that earlier. I missed it. So no updates to report. I will tweet out if it goes down again. But I probably don't have much to post because I was gone for like 10 days on my trip. I watched the security. I have security cameras around the house, and I watched footage of the security cameras on my trip. So I never got a notification that the cameras were offline. So as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any slowdowns or any T-Mobile shutdowns while I was away. And yes, I haven't gone back to Comcast. I'm still on T-Mobile home internet right now. I tweet and I complain whenever there's a shut off or whenever there's an issue, but over the past, I think, month, we haven't had any problems. The speeds are pretty good, honestly. Last time I did a speed test, it was like 52 megabits up, which is faster than Comcast would ever get in my area. And it was over 400 down. So I'm getting between 400 and 500 download and $50 a month, and I get 3% cash back on that. So it's really like $48.50 a month. So the cheapest Wi-Fi I've ever had and the fastest upload I've ever had. So I'm happy with it when it's working, but hopefully it stays that way. Lord Zero, thank you for your support. He says, you take that money and like it. All right. I'll put it towards the, what's it called? The Wi-Fi. Or I guess, I blew a bunch of money on Apple last year. So I know a lot of people may be disappointed that, like, hey, Drew's not upgrading his phone, or he's not upgrading his laptop, or he's might not I'm definitely not upgrading my Apple Watch. I might not even upgrade my headphones this year. People are, oh, he's not an Apple sheep anymore. It's like, well, I dropped like frickin', I think, over $8,000 on Apple in the span of like 3 months last year. It's a lot of money. And a lot of this stuff is built to last, and I do think it will last me quite a while. I've already put my iPhone through its paces and swimming in salt water and stuff. And I bought my last Mac in 2017, and I used it until last year. So it lasted. iMac Pro lasted me quite a ways, and I think at this point, after I had all the issues with T-Mobile home internet and all the complaints with that, I think my next big investment goal should be, I don't know. I mean, we've already got the Tesla coming, so that's mentally it's already purchased. It's just we're waiting on the car to arrive. But after that, it's probably going to be, investing in stocks because they're all down right now, and maybe it would be cool if we could buy a house that had fiber optics. I don't know for sure. There's not a guarantee or a promise that that'll happen, but maybe move to a place where I can get faster internet because I've basically tried every single internet provider here, and if we do buy or upgrade in the future, I'd want to get a house with faster internet if at all possible. Any updates on when the Tesla comes? Right now, it's estimated delivery got pushed back while I was on my trip, but it's saying sometime between August and September. Really don't know. Oh yeah, the Apple display. That's something I might buy. It depends on the specs. I'm very, very interested in a 120 hertz monitor. I don't really care if it's made by Apple or not. I would prefer if Apple made one, but all I know is if I have to put up with a Apple branded 60 hertz monitor, I'd rather just use my iMac Pro, which I already have on my desk here. I have oh my god. I was going to call it Stage Manager, and then I was going to call it Continuity Camera, and I was like, no, neither of that. Universal Control. Oh my god. So much marketing terminology I got to remember. But I have my Magic Mouse here, and I can control the iMac Pro with the same mouse as my MacBook, so it feels like an external monitor anyway. It's 5K at 60 hertz. It's basically the same panel that's in the studio display. So the only way I would consider getting an Apple display is if it was reasonably priced and had ProMotion. But I have a strong suspicion neither of those things are going to happen. I don't think it will have ProMotion, and I don't think it will be reasonably priced. So I'm curious what they come up with for the Pro Display XDR refresh. That'll likely launch alongside the Mac Pro. But I don't have high hopes. I'll think I got to wait and see for sure. I'm not going to buy a monitor yet, but I'll wait and see, and if the Apple monitor is as disappointing as I thought, I'll probably try to find some reasonably priced high refresh rate monitor and use that. I notice 120 hertz. I don't do gaming on my phone, I don't do gaming on my iPad, and I don't do gaming on my Mac, but I notice and appreciate high refresh rate displays. It feels more lifelike, it feels more responsive, it feels more natural, it feels closer to the refresh rate of reality. As soon as I got, if you go back and watch me unbox the 2017 iPad Pro, I noticed 120 hertz like that. And it was like, as soon as I saw it, I wanted it on everything. That was the main reason the primary reason I bought this phone was for the high refresh rate. If this phone did not have 120 hertz, I would not have bought it. I would have kept my 12 mini for another year and waited for Apple to eventually add ProMotion. There's reasons to like high refresh rate aside from gaming. I don't do any gaming on this phone. But I really appreciate the high display. Same thing with my MacBook. I really, really notice it, especially when I'm editing in a timeline and moving windows around and that kind of stuff. So it's pointless for people to use that. Do you really need that argument when we're in the tech space? It's like you don't really need anything. It's just a matter of preference and what products cater to the things you care about. So yeah, I could get a 60 hertz monitor, but then do I really need an Apple branded monitor? No, I could probably buy a 1080p 14 or a 1440p monitor for $200 that works, that gets the job done. Like doesn't work too easy to work with the whole need argument in the tech space. It's like, what if you're going to drop money on a monitor, you want it to be nice and you want it to complement my MacBook display well. Do you think Apple will stop selling the 13 mini come September? I thought they would kill the 12 mini, but they didn't. So I'm going to guess yes. I think the 13 mini will still be sold at $100 less. Or maybe because of inflation, they only $50 less, or they don't reduce the prices that much. But hey, thank you, Dennis, so much for the super chat. As a heads up, Comcast in select areas started to offer new speed tiers that go 50, 50, 100, 100, 300, 100, 600. I assume the slower speed is upload, but so don't feel too bad yet. I don't feel bad at this point, but I did see that. Believe it or not, I do keep up with the Comcast subreddit, and I've seen certain people in certain areas getting faster upload speeds now. But I checked, and I do not see them available in my area. So I also just don't like Comcast in general because of how they treated us when we had them. Hey, thank you, J Money. I have an iPhone 12. Should I upgrade to 14 or 15? It comes down to how you're feeling. How's your 12, Jay? Are you happy with it? Are you comfortable with it? Obviously, if you're willing to wait a year, you'll get a better product, regardless of if it's a 14, 15, or 16, or 17. iPhone 17 will probably be better than the 15, but that doesn't mean you should wait forever. The upgrade, I don't think, should be based on what the 14 or 15 features are, because, spoiler alert, they're probably fairly minor upgrades. What it should be based on is how your current phone is performing. If you're happy with your 12 and you can get by easily with your 12, then just keep your 12 another year. It's a good year to invest in the stock market and not an iPhone, is what I'm trying to say. But if you're not happy with the 12 and it's not getting by and you have problems with it and you think the 14 or 15 might address it, then get the 14, I guess. But thank you for your support. Anyway, I know that Comcast is improving upload speeds in certain areas, but I checked with them in my area, and those speeds are not offered yet. So I have friends and family not too far away from me that are still on Comcast. So I'm pretty sure I'll be aware when they start offering faster upload speeds. But ultimately, I don't really love Comcast as a business. So honestly, if I was voting with my wallet, I would continue to pay for Starlink. But the only reason I canceled Starlink was because I knew if I kept paying for it, even if I wasn't using it, I would be taking up space. And the fact that I canceled my Starlink allowed someone else who really needed it to get there sooner. So I was okay canceling. But if I am not terribly happy with any of the internet providers as companies, I'm going to choose the one that's the cheapest overall. And even the 50-50 Comcast plan in my area, I don't think would be cheaper than T-Mobile at this point. Or if it was, it would be temporary. It would be like $40 a month for the first year, and then the price goes up, so we'll see. Format is download upload, so 300 down, 100 up as an example. Yeah, it's good news. It's good news that the speeds are improving, but I think I'd rather just go straight to fiber if I'm changing houses in the future. I don't know. We don't know. My apartment is forcing me to get $90 a month Spectrum internet and cable, which is $400/20, despite the fact that Frontier Fiber is available for $500 to $500 for $50. That should be illegal. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. How can they do that? That's insane. They're forcing you to buy a more expensive, slower speed. Oh, see. Oh, that sucks. That would drive me nuts. I'm not in that bad of a situation, but the fact that I can't get fiber here and Comcast can charge whatever they want is already frustrating enough. But why do you think that Stage Manager will not be much better or perfect with the iPad Pro with iPadOS 17? Because I just don't get the point of Stage Manager. It's just bunching a few windows together, and it doesn't fix the fundamental problem of iPadOS. I don't think if you go back and watch all the people reviewing iPad Pros, just refresh yourself. If you scroll back and go watch everyone review the M1 equipped iPad Pros, I don't think the top request was windowed multitasking. Some people probably mentioned that, but I don't think it was the number one request or even the number two request. Most people were saying there's not applications that take advantage of this hardware. I mean, external monitor support was up there, and Stage Manager kind of addresses that, but the ultimate problem is the capability, what the apps are capable of doing. Not so much how you view those apps. I don't think matters that much. Yeah, like James is saying. Comcast always has special deal, $50 a month for 2 weeks. After that, the price increases to $200 a month. It's like $50 a month, but it doesn't even last a month. $50 a month for 2 seconds, and then it goes up to $2,000 a minute. Oh my god. Oh, whoa, Dennis. What is with the super chats today? You guys. Sorry, I'm supposed to like it. Wow! I love it! Thank you, Dennis! Now Drew can buy more stocks. You guys are too kind. Thank you. He says, pricing-wise, Comcast has been pretty responsive. New promos have no contract and include the modem rental and unlimited data. So $300 to $100 is coming in at $50, if I remember, and then mobile brings it down to $30 in most areas. Well, I'm not going to Xfinity Mobile. I can guarantee you that. Mint Mobile is way cheaper. And the problem is the new promos. I know, I see them. They show up on Paramount Plus every single day. Sign up now. It's no contract for 2 years or whatever. After a certain number of years, they start raising the rates again. It's not permanent. And then once you have the modem rental, they start charging you extra for that modem and rental as the time goes by. So I appreciate the super chat, Dennis. It's very kind of you, but ultimately, it's not like T-Mobile has got nothing in plan for like raise the price after a certain amount of time. Um, and I'm very happy with the upload speeds as of right now. I also think I should have a long-term ownership experience with all of these internet providers. You know, I tried Starlink for a year. I was on Comcast for several years. I think I want to try T-Mobile for at least a year, maybe more, and we'll see how it does later. But I like the simplicity of it, just plugging in. I don't want to have a person show up and have to set up the special router with the special modem, and you're going to have to pay for this modem 2 years later. Whatever. I'd rather just get fiber somewhere. Growing up, everyone thought Comcast was the best of the best or the worst of the worst. Yeah, I mean, they have a monopoly in so many areas, but you don't have a gaming chair anymore. We still have it. It's just in the other room. My sister needed to get rid of a chair, and this one was a lot lighter and fit in my desk, under my desk better. And the gaming chair was breaking. Like the armrests were crumbling and parts of it were falling apart. So it was just kind of getting old. We want a calculator on iPad OS. There's the bigger problem. It's very generous of you, Dennis, though. Thank you. Those price, I can assure you those prices that with those speeds that you're talking about were not offered here. I checked. If they were, I would be far more interested, but they're not. And that's one of the things that frustrates me about Comcast is they change their prices depending on your household heavily. One person in one part of the country can get a way better deal than someone in a different part of the country. It's just based on demand and the competition in the area. Let's see. What feature on iPhone 14 are you most excited for? Oh my God, another super chat. Okay, let me address this super chat. Thank you, Dennis. I just want to support you. Side note, though, on the topic of Mint, what do you think of the new deflation pricing promo? I was very impressed by that. I was bummed that I can't take advantage of it, but every time Mint has another offer. So for those who don't know, not a sponsor, Dennis brought this up. Mint is offering all plans to be $15 a month, even the unlimited data plan, which is not really unlimited, but it ends up being like 35 gigs of high-speed data, and then it slows down a little bit. I used up the 35 gigs, and I could still do stuff. You don't get like overage charges with Mint. They just slow down your speeds when you hit your data limit. But with unlimited, it's like 35 gigs, and then after 35, you're throttled a bit. But even after I used the 35 gigs, I could still watch YouTube videos. So I was like, well, as long as I can watch YouTube on the go, then I don't really care what the speeds are, as long as I can watch it. Anyway, they're now offering all those plans at $15 a month for new customers, which I was like, dang, $15 a month. But you have to buy, I think, like 3 months or something at a time up front, or yeah, you can't just buy 1 month at a time. That's the whole concept of Mint, is they buy you buy in bulk to get a bigger discount. But every time they do those promos, I'm just like, are you guys okay? Like, please don't go bankrupt. Please. I hope Ryan Reynolds has enough money in his bank. Please. But yeah, it's a great deal. I just don't want them to go under. Please don't go under, Mint. Please. Anyway, Mustafa says, what feature of iPhone 14 are you most excited for? Do you think the hole punch design for iPhone 14 is going to change anything in terms of UI? Nothing. That's my prediction. The eye hole will change nothing in terms of the UI. It will look a little bit different, but that's it. They're not going to... The eye hole will look different, not the icons. I think the icons will be in the exact same place. They're not going to add the battery percentage back. It's going to look exactly the same software-wise. Like, basically, if you take a screenshot on a 14 Pro versus a 13 Pro, you will not be able to tell from the screenshot which phone is which. That's my prediction. I think it's completely aesthetic based. It's not to bring any information back. It's just The eye hole is literally just so the phone can look newer. That's it. You'll buy the new phone because it'll look like the new phone. But the 14 Pro the eye hole goes so much further down, which annoys me. And it's cramming all of these pixels and useless data behind the cameras, which is not going to do anything for you. So I'm kind of like boycotting it out of principle. And I hope that whenever I do upgrade my iPhone again, we'll be past the eye hole. I'm anticipating that the pros will get the eye hole this year, and then the regulars will get the eye hole next year. And the whole iPhone 15 lineup, the regulars and the pros, will all have the same eye hole cutout. And then probably with the iPhone 16, they'll get rid of the pill-shaped hole and maybe just have a camera hole. And then maybe give it another couple of years, like the iPhone 17 or 18 or 19 will get rid of that entirely, and it'll all be under the display. Hopefully I can hold out and wait until we skip the eye hole entirely, but it's for people that want the cell service name back on top. Does anyone want the carrier name to be back on top 24/7? Because I know I don't. I really don't mind the notch at all. I think the notch is fine, and they don't need to change it. Do you think they will do the little white ring around the front-facing camera when you turn it on, kind of like an Android hole-punch camera? No, they could, but they already do like the little green and orange indicator lights. I think they'll just do that. Now you can have more useless space. I hadn't thought of the fact that they could always add the option for a full notch in software since it's OLED. They could, but they won't. They don't address things like that. You know how Apple is. Just like when I put my mouse behind the notch of my MacBook Pro, the MacBook Pro pretends the notch is not there. It treats the OS like nothing's changed. I'm not saying anything about Comcast because my mother told me not to say anything if I didn't have nice things to say. That's good. That's a good point, James. I like that. That's my worry about US Mobile. I think they're great. I do not believe they make any money whatsoever. Yeah, I have that concern with Mint. I'm like, the service is fantastic. They must be losing thousands of dollars. Yeah. Oh, no! Stop with the super chat. Stop. Oh, my God. This is too much. Don't demand equality for iPad and iPhone. They may just get rid of the calculator app. Yeah, because that doesn't stifle competition. My goodness, you guys. Why? Why do you keep... Okay, I shouldn't question it. Thank you. That's what I really mean. Thank you, Dennis. Too much. I gotta give you ultra moderator powers now. Here it comes. Dennis P. He says, you should test out Dish when they become available to you, as they are offering true unlimited data for $30 a month. Look into Mobile X a bit. It's the cheapest option to date when it goes live. We had an interview with the founder. I don't know if they can undercut Mint for me because I utilize and I use a lot of the referral credits. So unless Mobile X pays me to use it, then it's not going to be cheaper than Mint. And I'm very happy with the coverage and the speeds I get with Mint Mobile. But how fast are the speeds that Dish is offering? Is Dish trying to shut down Starlink? Because I saw some company, I think it was Dish, that was lobbying to get Starlink shut down in the U.S., which I'm not okay with and I think is messed up. So I'll check them out if the speeds are good, but I'll at least stick with T-Mobile for the foreseeable future. It's a shame you guys are super chatting so much on YouTube because they take a cut. Patreon takes a smaller cut, so whatever. But I appreciate the messages and the donations regardless. You guys are far too kind, and I missed live streaming just for talking with you guys. I'll be frank. Like I met a lot of nice people and a lot of great friends we made on the trip to Hawaii, but a lot of people are just different from me and not really interested or like-minded in the same subjects that I am. I love talking about laptops and Apple Silicon and talking about new iPhones and new watch designs and rumors and new EVs and batteries and charging and stuff. I love talking about tech with people, but it's so difficult in the real world to find people interested in the same stuff. So I was missing just this kind of live time interaction just because there's like, oh my God, there's other people that have ideas and want to talk about the same stuff I want to talk about. So that gets me hyped and that makes me happy. So thank you. Thank you for supporting, which you don't have to do, but you do it anyway, which means a lot to me. I'm humbled. This feels like a dream. It is a dream. This is a dream job for me. Even if it will have 2 NANDs, they will not be in RAID configuration, so no faster than single one. Well, I think with virtual memory swap and the read and write speeds, they've proven it is. It can be faster to have 2, but too much kindness. It can be very difficult to talk with people about tech. Yeah, I still run into people that get a lot of things wrong, and I don't want to be the jerk to correct them, and I just try to be likable and agreeable, even if I don't really agree with the person. Because it's one thing to disagree with someone on the internet, because you can have like a back and forth. But if someone is clearly not well researched or well experienced in the field, and then you just say, "Actually, I know what I'm talking about. You're an idiot. You don't know." It's Dish is offering cell phone service. They are a new 4th player that is meant to replace Sprint in the market. They offer phone plans with unlimited high-speed data on hotspot. Oh, that's pretty good. $30 a month. Yeah, tag me on Twitter or DM me when that becomes available. I have to look into that. Yeah, it's proven that it does make a difference, but I just don't think people who buy the base model MacBook Pro will notice that difference anyway. But I could do this for hours, guys, so it's been a lot of fun. Okay, last message here. Talking tech with someone who doesn't know anything about tech, but they think they know everything is just painful. Exactly. That drives me nuts. Okay, and Dennis says they offer a hotspot plan with true unlimited speeds, are uncapped. You can expect roughly 300 to 50 with very low ping times thanks to it being 5G native. Yeah, that does sound interesting. I'll have to check it out. But I got to get going now. I appreciate you all so much. I'm so glad to be back and live streaming again. This is so much fun. And expect more videos to come with more cringy skits that you guys want me to drop, but I'll keep making them. So thanks all. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh, and thanks, James. Thanks. One last super chat. The week isn't the same without live Drew. That's right. No, it isn't, but thanks.